All right, thank you very much, James. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Today, we are joined by some really amazing community builders building very different communities. So let's just dive in. Let's start by talking a little bit about the kind of spark that ignited your community. Like, what happened, where did it come from, and why did you decide to be part of that? Or if you started it, why did you take that jump? Maybe we'll start with Vicktoria.
Test. Okay, it works. Thank you very much. Great introduction. Okay, the spark. So maybe full disclosure, I'm not a developer. So talking about developer communities, I feel like this is something I should mention before that. So actually, I have a very conservative background because we started as an investment fund. So VC, kind of boring, I would say. What does this have to do with developer communities? So we realized early on that you need to bring people together in order to learn from them, or you go to conferences, you go to events, but the best way to really understand what's going on in the Web3 space, and thank God, like we're always very supportive and helpful, and wanted to connect with each other. We hosted a couple of first events in our old, very small office, and that was actually really good, and we realized, okay, we need to do this more often. And simultaneously, a guy randomly asked us if we want to check out a huge space here in Berlin, which is now the W3 Hub. Back then, none of us had like co-working space experience or anything else, but we entered the building, asked how many floors are able to be rented. He said 3, and we said we take all of them. Now it's 4 floors. So we just decided to do that without the knowledge that you should have in order to run a business like that. But somehow we had this vision. We were like, let's take that space, let's create a co-working space, let's invite the Web3 community to work there, to host their events, to whatever else happens on top of that. And now I'm a co-working space founder, I guess. And a certified event manager by now.
I was going to say a successful co-working space owner, and like a really interesting approach. So a bit of a leap of faith, but there was also a need, right? You needed to connect to builders. So it was like, okay, we need to find a place to bring people together to add value.
Of course, I mean, if you really want to learn, and especially as a VC, like if you want to be close to the people who are building in that space, create an environment where they can build. So that's basically the mission.
That makes total sense. Okay, Sacha, a very different sort of kind of community building approach. Where did it start?
Well, it started because there was a dire need in the Polkadot ecosystem to be connected with developers that are interested in tinkering with the technology. From my perspective, it was more of a developer kind of where it sprouted from, and I would do streaming and things like this, and then you do want to do workshops, you want to host events that make developers feel at home, right? So I've been spending most of my time over the last year and a half working, creating spaces for developers at Web0. So at Web0, we've been doing, I would say, it's really they're hacker houses, but pop-up hacker houses across the globe, and we're seeing that developers really want a place to feel at home. They want a place to feel connected and a safe space. And that's been really interesting to see because you see the people that come back. I think Zach actually was at one of our hacker houses in Denver, and he's here now, helping at the hackathon and hacking at the hackathon. So yeah, that's kind of where it started, and then you kind of see this interesting thing happen, which is developers don't really care that much about the specific technology. They just want to hang out and build cool things.
Nice. So different approach again. It's kind of I want it, so we'll build it, and then you're responding to how people are reacting to that as well, right? Because I've been to some of your hacker houses, and I feel like every time there's a little tweak or a change. So evolving is an important aspect of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you learn from what people like, what people don't like, and I think at least at Web0 we really care about breaking the barriers down, and I think at Web3 Hub, you guys are doing an amazing job, whereby you're bringing communities together, right? You're bringing technologies that don't necessarily collaborate on the protocol layer, whatever you want to call it, But end of the day, it doesn't matter because these people will still go to the first floor to go to a Solana event and go up to the third floor because there's an Ethereum event, and they're just people.
Someone
right?
was at Berlin Blockchain Week.
I think that exactly thing happened, right?
Yeah, and that's short-term thinking as well, right? This kind of tribalism thing, ultimately we're all trying to do the same thing. We all have the same goals. We all share the same ideology. So really, I think if from the kind of community building level, we approach it that way, that's a really positive step in the right direction. Zach, I love Developer DAO. I love all of you, by the way, obviously. Developer DAO is completely different. Talk a little bit about where Developer DAO came from, because it's been going a while, but you certainly, again, have a slightly different approach to building community.
Yeah, so Developer DAO was founded by Nader Dabit really as an experiment in decentralization, decentralized governance, and bringing together a large developer community where they wouldn't necessarily otherwise have had a space to connect, to engage, to learn with other developers. And a big part of what Developer DAO has done historically as well has really been in the developer relations category. I would argue Nader himself is the godfather of DevRel and Web3, and so it has had such an astounding influence on the direction of the organization.
Great, yeah, big shout out Nader. He's amazing, and I think has been a great kind of steward of different communities as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about authenticity and values, because sometimes when we are scaling communities, you have to make difficult choices, right? You start very small, grassroots, but as things start to grow, how do you manage that? How do you kind of meet that in the middle and make sure that you're kind of maintaining the original values that you set out with?
Yeah, so I remember there was a point a few years ago where there's kind of a difficult line to toe between authenticity and commercialization. Because at some point we did want to start bringing revenue into the DAO, and so we started doing things like getting sponsorships for the newsletter, getting hackathon partners. Billy Jitsu has run quite a few hackathons with our partners and done quite a wonderful job. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, developers, they don't want to be marketed too poorly. I think that's kind of a big thing. And so myself being a developer, I just try to give the people just something very straightforward, clean cut, and give them the fundamentals, give them what they need to grow, to learn, to engage, so that they can go off, they can use these technologies, they can experiment, they can do cool things and solve hard problems.
Yeah, so essentially you do a bit of bullshit vetting, right? You're like, we're not going to shill to you, but I'm going to share things that are going to be useful that I think you're going to enjoy. So it's about kind of a vetting of partnerships potentially and making sure that they align well with those values. What about you guys? How do you approach that?
Okay, authenticity and values. I think what comes in my mind directly is that even though the whole I as a founder, I'm there every day. And I've been there every day, almost every day, since 2.5 years, once we started with that. And we're sitting directly in the same room as everyone else. So we don't have a fancy office or anything. And especially in the very beginning of W3 Hub, there was nothing except a couple of desks and chairs. So we took care of everything by ourselves. And I think this is something that the people around us also see. We're not this C-level type of people who just hire someone and they took care of the rest. It's rather still us. I mean, now we have processes, we have employees and stuff, but in the beginning, we did everything by ourselves. Once the Solana Super Team people, they were the very first one who did a 5-week build station hackathon at W3 Hub when there was nothing, no infrastructure. So we built it up by ourselves. We worked very, very close with the people, and this is something that we still do. So talking about Berlin Blockchain Week, we had the discussion before. We had 30 events in 14 days. Of course, we have people working together with us to accomplish that, but even myself, and we have more companies than just the W3 Hub to take care of, I also brought a table to there, I picked up lunch, I worked as well, and being so close to the community and really understanding their needs, and just being there, talking to them, and then receiving the feedback. And I receive this a lot, and I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but a lot of people say, oh, you're so authentic, thank you for smiling, thank you for being here. I'm just yeah, thank you, I guess, then I'm doing my job right.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that's right. I think like modeling behaviors that you want to see in the community is really important. And yeah, just being hands-on and responding. I think listening. I think sometimes people maybe get a bit wrapped up, and being able to stop and actually listen and then take action is huge. What about you, Sacha?
I mean, for me, authenticity and values is really the centerpiece of what we do. And it's so integral to how we do things also. It's really the 0, 0 in the coordinate system. It's that reference point that then everything can be built from. And that's really important in the spaces we create. We have, for example, no shilling, no grifting, no rugging. Like, these are the rules of the block space. And we as organized, as kind of people behind these, we really push people to stand by these values. People that come to our events that break these kinds of rules, this kind of unspoken etiquette, very much like going to a Berlin club. You know what I mean, right? There's this unspoken social fabric that if something isn't off, or if this person is behaving a little bit not like these values, and then sorry, buddy, you're out. And so this is very much, integral to what we do.
Yeah, and like almost having that vetting. And it's not to say that it's disclusionary, but what you're saying is that to be part of our community, you should have value alignment, right?
For sure, yeah. Value alignment around how you communicate your opinions, maybe, everything from that to the technologies that you're maybe advocating for, and the way that you do it. Like, everyone has different opinions of. But I think, yeah, it's this kind of unspoken social fabric that is so integral to creating culture. That's the most. I think that is like what we do, right? We're creating culture, and let's be the role models of that culture.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a
Period.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I think we all talked about this before. Building community is hard, and especially as things kind of grow and evolve, you meet challenges. What have been your biggest challenges? Like, have there been moments where you've kind of gone, oh, I didn't see that coming? What unexpected challenges have you faced, and how did you tackle them?
I just thought. I'm really looking forward to hear from you guys how you handle that. But I think at some point, and you've mentioned that before, when you want to create a space where everyone feels welcome, I think first of all, you don't look at prices and numbers, and you really want to create the space, and you don't want to charge people ideally. So in the beginning, we were like, everyone can just do events. We do like a very low price or everything for free. If you want to work here, come, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, you as a company, and depending on where you host your events and what you do, you have to generate some kind of revenue, because otherwise you cannot survive and you cannot provide this platform, and you cannot grow, you cannot hire people. So I think especially in our situation where we also have to pay rent for the building that we're in, at some point you have to start like really charging people. You have to be like strict with, this is the flat fee that you have to pay for events. You have to pay for that because you have to pay for like a co-working desk. And I think finding a balance between still being this nice space where people can feel welcome and just being a running business at some point, I think this is something where I wouldn't say it's unexpected, but rather where I at some point felt uncomfortable being that business person, but at the same time also being this, everyone is welcome, we are building this culture here together, because there's always like a delta or a difference of what people can do, what people can't do. And I think this is something where I'm still struggling with sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, and have you shared those experiences? I mean, you talked a little bit about revenue earlier and kind of moving into the uncomfortable space where you're like, well, we're going to get sponsors and things. So similar issues, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. But I would also add on top of that because we're like a very remote community, I mean, we do some events occasionally at conferences, at least a few a year. But primarily everyone's on Twitter, they're on Discord, they're on social media. And so I think one of the big challenges was trying to drive engagement, and a lot of engagement conversation, especially around governance, was kind of holed up in the Discord server. So I mean, ultimately, I just started showing up every day. Regardless of our commercial responsibilities, you can still spend hours and hours in the Discord talking with other people. Because a lot of people come to Developer DAO, they want to grow, they want to learn, they want opportunities, they want jobs in the industry. And the absolute best way to do so is engage people directly. Be the person there in the Discord that will answer questions for other people.
Amazing.
And at some point, people would joke that I spend so much time in the Discord server, it's like a full-time job.
You're in there, you're like, have I eaten today? I'm not sure. But no, and I think that's great. And even having a friendly face in the community makes a huge difference. Turning up and, especially if you're joining a community for the first time, it's intimidating. It can be kind of overwhelming. And being able to say, oh, Zach, you're here, Vicky, brilliant, Sacha, oh, it's lovely to see. I think that's so good that you're so hands-on, you're so engaged and involved. And Sacha, what about you? What about the kind of unexpected challenges that you faced at Web0?
The unexpected challenges from when you're running like events like these hacker houses is everything that any event organizer will run into, right? Oh, there's no one at the door. Like, oh, we're running out of drinks. Like these kinds of things.
I feel that.
yeah, right. Or we're at capacity. People need to. No, but I mean,
those are good challenges, and I feel like the personality type that you have to be a community builder is
like I would say tough skin and some sort of personality type I haven't quite figured out, but I know my colleagues are that type.
Yeah, you enjoy a little bit. Okay, you're problem solvers. You enjoy a little bit.
You have to be problem solvers. I think on your feet all the time. But this sort of like this isn't so much my area, right? Like in terms of like actual events, but the challenges that I'm like faced with, like that I'm really the problems that I'm trying to solve. Is yes, you can build developer communities that people are excited about technologies, tinkering with stuff, going to hackathons, but what really happens after? How do you bring someone that's building a really cool idea during a hackathon to maybe getting funded, even if it's a small amount of money, and getting them to the next stage? Because at the end of the day, why are we doing all of this, right? We're doing this, I mean, from my perspective, it's because we want to see real adoption from, we got to start by developers to use this technology and build cool things. And so that's the big challenge right now that I'm interested in kind of cracking. What we're doing right now at the hackathon at the Web3 Summit is to try to unlock this what happens after the hackathon thing, where we're actually giving an opportunity for winners to continue working on their project post-hackathon. And yeah, it's we'll see where that kind of thing goes. But I know like you've probably seen a lot of communities that do this really well. Like I know Solana does a really great job having continuous activation for builders. But really, this is the problem that I don't think is solved yet. In the Polkadot ecosystem, it's far from being solved. We don't really have this funnel, and I'm hoping to be able to make a difference in that space.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's right because there's so much great stuff that happens at hackathons, but I think historically it's just been kind of like, well, that was awesome, like see you at the next hackathon. So I think building those funnels and pipelines into like real companies, essentially, right? Real impact is crucial to the future of Web3. So I'm excited to see what you're doing. Hopefully the Web3 Foundation can help. Like that would be awesome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your kind of tools, your processes, your systems. What have you had to put in place, or what have you chosen to put in place to be able to scale your communities? Or have you intentionally decided that things will be organic? Like, how do you approach that from your side? Because resources might be limited. Again, you're all very different. So talk me through a little bit, like how you approach this.
So Web0 bought a bus.
I saw your bus. It was very, very shiny.
It's kind of working. We can fit more people in, But yeah, go ahead, guys.
No, start. Please, you already started.
That's how we're scaling.
We bought a bus. We're scaling with the bus. This was the bus that was on tour in the States, right?
Yes.
I saw someone rapping on top of it.
We bought it in Denver and then drove it to Toronto. And then, it's a place where people can hang out during the Hacker House time. And it's also, we can move it around in front of other people's events. So that then we're getting people from other events to come into our Hacker House. Yeah, it's.
I love it. Kidnapping.
I almost mentioned that as kind of a joke, but it's a real thing that we're doing. I can't come up with anything better in terms of scaling up for our events right now. Our bottleneck is our team.
Sure. Yeah. Which happens. Do you think that you're going to grow the team? Like, have you got plans around that, or is it just like we'll get through what we've got right now and then take a moment?
Yeah, a little bit of both. we aspire to creating more maybe permanent hacker houses, which will probably be something we'll see in next year.
There's someone here who could probably help you out. So
we might need your help.
all right, brilliant. What about yourself?
Okay, I actually have to think about this because, I mean, we have this community of people who are members in our co-working space, but at the same time, you also define people as part of the community who just like visit our events during, like not even our events. These events are usually hosted by other people. We're just the venue. Sometimes we do events by ourselves. But the most important thing for us is to always have something going on at W3 Hub. So having either like community events for the members, such as we have like weekly beer pong, beer and block and beer, I think we call it. It's like a table tennis game with beers. We do brunches, but also we try to have as many different type of meetups and events at our space, so everyone just feels this to be their second home, so to say. And in order to bring this in, we actually use boomer tools like newsletters. We are very active on LinkedIn, on X, showcasing what's going on, creating this like little kind of FOMO without the negative part. It's rather, oh, there's so much stuff going on at W3 Hub, I should come. So that's why Berlin Blockchain...
I love your videos, by the way, you did during Berlin Blockchain Week. You guys should check out her videos during Berlin Blockchain Week, they're great.
Okay, and then like stuff like that, where we just record videos, do fun stuff, and make people aware of that space, and try to keep our authentic self. But yeah, thank you, I really appreciate that. So it's a lot of mix of social media and really on-site development that keeps us alive.
Nice, nice. And Zach, what about you guys?
Yeah, so scale in our organization is very interesting because a lot of our early contributors, especially, are extremely talented individuals, and very quickly they actually made their way into industry. And so as soon as we started having alumni making their way into industry, you know, it created a bit of a pipeline for people to join Developer DAO, contribute, and, you know, find placement in the industry ultimately. Internally, we also do some cool stuff like newsletter. Shout out Kate, shout out Jamie. Really, really talented writers. And, you know, for a long time, we had like a service model of sorts. You know, we required a lot of contributors to, you know, write courses, articles for education. But, you know, it became difficult after a certain time because we kept losing everyone to industry. They kept getting jobs.
I mean, this is a good problem to have. You know, you're creating a community that is upskilling and, you know, is going out, and that's impact, right? You're moving people from being potentially passive to active members of the community. And I think all of you have just talked about things that do that, right? Where people join, they're interested, but they're not necessarily active. So having those mechanisms in place where they become active and then in turn become impactful in the wider Web3 industry is really, really powerful.
100%. And the other side of this as well is we've started taking a more product-focused approach. So for example, I'm actually launching DD Cloud very soon, our PC service, a little alpha leak. And, you know, I want to really hopefully get the community engaged, being able to contribute to the code base, get real experience, and be able to be placed ultimately into engineering roles and positions in industry.
Amazing. You heard it here first. You got to get on it. That's very exciting. All right, well, we've not got long to go, so I want to wrap up by talking to you about what's next, what's coming for your community. How can folks here engage and help kind of move things forward? You're so polite. We'll start with Sacha.
So what's next? Well, I mean, our focus is to continue on the run that we've been having with making block spaces. By block space, I mean our hacker houses, making them better, making them bigger, really hosting more people. I mean, we're seeing more and more people show up. So we are planning for actually hosting the Polkadot Developer Conference in Buenos Aires in November. So that's the bigger project that we're going to be doing. And you know, we're trying to separate our time from the things that we want to do for the Polkadot community and also stuff to make us grow. Because we did mention this topic of like, okay, we're just doing all this work, but it's like, where's the revenue? How do we really make things sustain? And that's a challenge I think we all share. Especially if you're going around saying it's open source, it's like free, and like there's always this challenge. I'm hoping to see us build tools to help us do our job much better. So for instance, hackathon submissions, also retargeting people with hey, you should come to this event, build out this toolkit that will help us be much more efficient. I think that's our next focus.
That's great. Awesome. Vicktoria?
Okay, I thought about it now. Two things. I've mentioned Berlin Blockchain Week before, even though it's I think over for 3-4 weeks. We're already planning the next one in 2026. We don't know the dates yet because they are connected to some conferences, but we realized that it's really cool actually to be this neutral building where everyone can just come in and host their hackathons, events, whatsoever. So as you mentioned it before, we had Solana, we had Ethereum, then we had Cardano on all simultaneously on different floors. And we want to even make the whole experience better next year. So planning it bigger, bringing more companies in outside of Web3, which sounds counterintuitive, but this brings me to the second point. I think we reached a point where I can confidently say that I feel a lot of people in Berlin have been to W3 Up at some point, for any event or being a member whatsoever. And everyone is building amazing stuff, but just looking from the fund perspective, because we also talk to old money people, TradFi people, and everyone else outside of Web3 who would not consider themselves a degen or so. We want to invest in real world use cases in a way that we want to solve real problems with blockchain technology, and we want to invest in these as well. So for us, this means bringing developers actually together with, I don't know, let's say the AI industry, the automotive industry, whatsoever. And we see ourselves as the connector and the platform. So I don't know if this means that we will host more events on different topics. We are actually planning this as well. But this can also include so many other things that I just don't know of. But we're currently looking into ways to, the KPI is bring as many industries as you can to W3 Hub. And that's what we're currently working on.
That's awesome. That is awesome and so valuable, and I think is very forward-looking in a way that we need to be. So yeah, that's really cool. And Zach, what about yourselves?
Yeah, so the big thing is shipping Developer DAO Cloud. That's kind of the big thing on our roadmap. Hopefully the middle of next month we can get to market. Our first product will be RPCs, and then we have to plan down the line accordingly. Because it's a cloud computing company, we're going to have our own serverless runtimes and a lot of really cool stuff. But I think ultimately what we really need to do is get people super engaged, not only with the project, but with each other. When you build infrastructure, I guess the really cool thing is that we're very peaceful with a lot of projects. We're in the Ethereum ecosystem, the Cosmos ecosystem, Polkadot ecosystem. And from that perspective, it's just a great opportunity to diversify everyone's knowledge about various projects and also build up their fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's right. I think having a sense of neutrality, a sense of kind of the community being bigger, and always thinking about how you can connect is just great and so important. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what all of you do. Hopefully we'll all get to play together on different things. While we're wrapping up, Sacha, when can we check out the results of your amazing hackathon? When is the closing ceremony? So
tomorrow at 4 p.m. is when we're going to do the pitches of the finalists. So be there. I think it's going to be after the program at the main conference. So we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Amazing. And Vicky, when can people stop by W3 Hub?
Every day.
Amazing. Easy peasy, just up the road. And also, Zach, if I want to get involved with Developer DAO, how do I do that?
So you can buy a D4R NFT, Devs for Evolution, or buy code off the market. 400 code or 1 NFT is good enough to get you into the DAO. And yeah, just show up, engage, talk with people, and that's really the big thing.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. And if you're looking for grants or more information about Polkadot, come and see the Web3 Foundation. Please help me say a huge thank you to our amazing panelists.